Good. Acting Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. That following his 20 years of service as Minority Counsel, General Counsel, and Staff Director of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And he's currently serving as a Senior Fellow at the Institute for Defense Analyses. Ms. Disbrow, who I think many of you know, previously served as Undersecretary of the Air Force, and prior to that, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Financial Management and Comptroller. She was also the Vice Director of the Joint Staff J8. She currently serves as a Director on the Board of Mercury Systems. The whole leadership team here looks forward to working with Mr. Levine and Ms. Disbrow in their new roles as members of the Commission. We're grateful for their willingness to continue to serve the country in this capacity, and certainly look forward to the good work that the Commission will help us do in terms of our own programming and budgeting and execution. So with that, we'll go to questions. Lita.
Thanks, Doug. Two things. One of the things that the Russians said today was that they boosted their staff at some of their nuclear sites. I'm wondering if there's anything that the Pentagon has seen regarding any changes in their nuclear posture at all. And then secondly, can you provide any assessment on the convoy that's headed to Kyiv and what the security situation in Kyiv is, to the best that you all can tell right now?
Yeah. So on the nuclear question, I have nothing to confirm these reports that they've changed their staffing. What I would tell you is we've seen Mr. Putin's announcement. We believe it's as unnecessary as it is escalatory, but we're reviewing and analyzing that announcement. And I would only just tell you that as we continue to review and analyze and monitor, the Secretary Austin is comfortable with the strategic deterrent posture of the United States and our ability to defend the homeland, our allies, and our partners. On the convoy, I mean, I've seen the images that you're referring to on television, just like you. I mean, we see them as well. I can't speak to specifics about its makeup in the timeline and the schedule that they're on, or what their ultimate destination is, but clearly we continue to see Russian forces try to move closer to, so they can move on Kyiv from the ground. We still assess that they're outside the city center, but what we know clearly that they have intentions with respect to Kyiv. What we also have seen is Ukrainians resisting quite effectively around Kyiv, and continuously. They have made it a tough slog for the Russians to move further south. And as I think you've seen in reporting of your own, that the Russians have not only experienced a stiff and determined resistance by the Ukrainians, but logistics and sustainment problems of their own. So I can't speak with specificity about this convoy and what's in it and what their designs are, but it clearly appears to us, just anecdotally, as of a piece of their desire to continue to move on the capital. Jen.
John, what's your assessment of the Russian military? What have you learned about the Russian military from this last 5 days?
You know, I think it's too soon for us to have some sort of sweeping conclusions about the Russian military here in day 5. I would just say a couple of things. First of all, make no mistake, Mr. Putin still has at his disposal significant combat power. He hasn't moved all of it into Ukraine, but he's moved the majority of it. He still has a lot that he hasn't moved into Ukraine. It's combined arms, and it's not insignificant, Jen. Number 2, yes, they have faced setbacks, and they have faced resistance. You gotta hand it to the Ukrainians, who have been fighting very hard for their country and making an impact and making a dent on Mr. Putin's abilities. But they will learn. The Russians will learn from this. We expect that we haven't seen any change in what we believe their desires to move in Ukraine, and so they have suffered setbacks. But I don't think we can just assume that they're going to stay set back, if you will. That they will try to work through the resistance and to work through the challenges they've had on the logistics and sustainment front. Go ahead.
Have you seen any new threat to Article 5 nations from Russian forces?
We have not. We have not. Tara.
Russia has said it will now hold accountable any nation that supplies weapons to Ukraine that lead to the death of its own forces. Is there a risk here that this could escalate if Russia decides to retaliate against nations that are providing these weapons?
Tara, there's been a risk of escalation since before Mr. Putin decided to move in, with tens of thousands of troops and tanks and mechanized forces and aircraft and ballistic missiles. You want to talk about escalation? Let's talk about escalation. Mr. Putin is the one escalating this and continues to do so. We're going to stand by the Ukrainian armed forces as we have, as other NATO allies have, and we're going to continue to find ways to help them defend themselves.
Turkey today announced that they are closing the straits to all warships for the littoral and non-littoral countries. Do you have anything on that? Do you have any comment?
I haven't. I don't have anything on that. Yeah, Abraham.
Thanks, John. Is DoD coordinating air defense assistance with partners, and can you comment on the EU offer to give Ukraine combat jets?
I can't comment on the EU offer. We've seen that. I mean, that's really for the European Union to speak to. But separate and distinct from that, and I think this gets really more at your first question, we absolutely remain in close consultation and coordination with allies and partners about security assistance. I don't have a coordination mechanism to speak to, like all of it's being funneled through a single point or that kind of thing. But we continue to coordinate closely with allies and partners about the security assistance that the Ukrainians continue to get, not just from us, but from them as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So, many European nations are providing the Ukrainians with advanced weapons. They're not shy in revealing what types of weapons they're providing to Ukraine. In the past, the U.S. has been reluctant and providing lethal weapon, but now, openly we're talking about these things. However, we're still talking anti-airborne, anti-armored, but there's no specificity. Is this because of intelligence reasons, or as some might say, you don't want to provoke the Russians more? What is the reason that it's open? The U.S. will support the Ukrainian forces. We're going to continue to do that, as you said, and other officials. But what on the specific side of these weapons?
Fadi, I don't think we've been inconsistent at all. I can't speak for what other nations are saying and doing. They can speak for the security assistance they're providing the Ukrainians, which is welcome and certainly encouraged. We've been pretty consistent about A, acknowledging we're doing it and going to continue to do it. B, giving you a sense of the size and scale and the scope of it in terms of the dollar figures applied to it. And C, been pretty, I think, transparent about what's generally in the package. We're not going to give you an inventory list. We're not going to put that out to the public because, as I've said from this podium many times before, we don't think there's a value to operational security for the Ukrainians to have that out in the public, that what the shopping list looks like on any given day. Just don't see a value to doing that. I think we need to think about, we should always think about operational security, certainly in this case on the Ukrainians' part. So we're doing that. The kinds of material that are going to be in these security assistance packages going forward, I think you've rightly said, we've detailed it's going to be some weapons that can support them on the ground, as well as weapons that can support the airborne challenges that they have. And I think we feel comfortable going about that far.
The images coming from Maxar, the satellite images of this convoy that extends for 17 miles, do you believe the Russian forces advancing on Kyiv are planning on basically encircle the city or storm Kyiv? This type of troops and armaments at this size, are you able to draw any conclusion from what you've seen?
I think the main conclusion that we can draw, this gets to Lita's question, is that that they continue to want to move on Kyiv, to capture Kyiv, to take Kyiv. Although we don't know everything about this convoy, it is certainly in keeping with what we believe to be their intent with respect to the capital city. How they're going to do that, whether it's encirclement or bombardment or street-to-street fighting, I mean, I just don't think we have that level of dexterity now to give you that kind of detail in terms of Russian planning. We don't have insights to everything that they're planning on doing. What we can talk about is what we're seeing now, and that's what we're seeing now. And we're also seeing the Ukrainians put up a very stiff and determined resistance on their capital city. They have made it very difficult for the Russians to continue to move ahead. We believe that based on what we know of what their plans were, that they are behind schedule, that they have faced a stiffer resistance than they anticipated.